Welcome to the Spirit Sessions podcast. I'm your guide, Katie Silcox, bringing you your weekly self-love soundbite. Join us, where I'll help you find your true spiritual home, where every single aspect of you is holy ground, holy ground, holy ground, holy ground.
This is Spirit Session Podcast with Katie Silcox. Venga chicos, empezamos. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hi everyone, Katie here. This podcast is intended to inspire you, educate you, and most importantly, support you on your journey towards knowing who you really are, that inner self, that inner teacher. I am not a psychologist or a medical doctor and do not offer professional health or medical advice on this podcast. If you are suffering from any kind of psychological or medical issue, please do the right thing and seek help from your qualified health professional. Hey, beautiful listener. It is your Gal Friday for all things spirit, self, sex, self-care, and all the things that start with S, including Silcox. It's your girl, Katie Silcox, coming to you February. Y'all, oh my Lord. We have started level 1, and this year is already just been so much fun. And God, I just love our school. We attract such cool women. So I have a little prediction that this podcast will be the most popular one we've ever put out because of the title. So now that I have caught your fancy, it was a bait and switch, you guys. This is not going to teach you how to have the hottest tantric Valentine's Day sex of your life. Just kidding. It totally is. It actually is. But now that I've got your attention, I just wanted to prove the point that I bring up a lot in Shakti school, which is whenever we talk about sex in Shakti school, like everybody gets really happy and excited and interested and not bored. And also when we talk about our bodies and we talk about our sexuality, we're talking about the most tender and intimate and vulnerable and in my opinion sacred part of one of the most sacred parts of our lives. And the only, the thing about sex is the exact same thing about our spiritual connection to the divine. There is no one that can take that from you or really give it to you. Right? The connection to the divine is a holy journey that the individual has to go on. And of course we have our communities and mentors and teachers, and they act as mirrors. And it's really similar, this whole pathway of our sensuality and our sexuality. And if we deny it, it will repress and show up in insidious, unfortunate ways that don't really serve the higher purpose of our lives, right? But when we squander it and flaunt it from a manipulation perspective, it doesn't take us closer to the divine and our hearts and our deepest longing either, right? And so it's this really fertile, tender, important ground. And so what I want to just put out there into the field is this idea that we have around Tantra and sexuality. And I understand the polarization around this word. I've been studying Tantra for 15 years. Is that true? No, that's not true. Man, y'all, I'm getting old. I started studying yoga at 19, and really, I read my first, quote, Tantra book at 21, and I'm 40 something. And so it's been a minute, and what I have received from my education is that there's a polarization around the word itself. There's a polarization in the Western psyche, and there's a polarization in the Eastern psyche as well. What is this polarization around the word Tantra? On one hand, you have, and this is not a bad word, it just is, the word is ignorance. Ignorance doesn't mean you're bad, it just means people don't know. And so when they hear the word Tantra, they may have only a sort of subconscious cultural inkling of what the word means, and many people relate it to Sting, and we've talked about this on the podcast, like, and then like Cosmo magazine and all of these sort of girly magazines, and even like Men's Health. We have this idea that Tantra is about sex. Tantra is about sex. And that's been really annoying for me, trying to say that I have a philosophy degree and focused on Tantra. People get the wrong idea, as you can imagine. And so I do not say that I have a philosophy degree in Ayurvedic and Tantric medicine, because I understand that's just an ignorance in the culture around what Tantra is. And so to reduce Tantra down to sexuality is just ridiculous. It's like reducing the Taj Mahal down to like a tiny pebble in the front entrance. But that tiny pebble is still there. And so the polarization is that then we have sort of a backlash from the religious ilk and the scholarly ilk that feel a need to defend Tantra against sexuality and sensuality. And this group may tend to also have beautiful insight into the historical considerations from a scholarly approach around the Eastern tradition from India and other places in Asia, as well as different forms of mystical sexual magic practices that is very interesting and very informative. And if you go down that route, guys, guess what? If you really study these old books from Japan, from India, the Kama Sutra being the most famous sex manual of all time, if you historically look at these things, you have to say and admit something that is not very PC, and that is these were really misogynistic, patriarchal, and in some cases quite abusive takes on women. That's what we learn when we look at a lot of these scholarly texts, within my studies a notable exception being some aspects of Taoism that really respected women, and there were in fact groups of women that did sexual practices, and they were really interesting and funny and sort of brazen. The White Tigress is one book I'll add to the podcast show notes if you want to read these things, and there's many, right? And so you have sort of a history scholarly look at these practices, and that doesn't quite fit in with equality and women's empowerment and sovereignty around our sex lives and feminism. It doesn't fit in with that so well. And so you have this sort of nebulous schism where either all Tantra is about sex, and it's just this sort of like methodology for having mind-blowing orgasms that last for days, or it's this sort of scholarly take, which also leaves a lot to be lacking. Because what is the point of this podcast today, and what is the question that is in the hearts of many of the women that come to Shakti school, and it's certainly in my own, and that is, how the heck do I get my sex life to be a better place? This isn't working. This doesn't feel fulfilling. There is a knowingness in me that there is more here. There is something more. And I'm not just saying this is about women. This is about a lot of people on the planet right now awakening to a hard truth, and that is what we're doing isn't working. There's a longing inside of us for one word, and that is connection, real connection. And especially if we're talking about our intimate relationships. Of course, in this podcast, we won't go through the things we talk about in Shakti school for a number of reasons. One, it's not the right forum, And two, it takes a while to unpack a lot of these things. And that's why we've created a whole academy where you're held, right? Where we have a container and a staff of experts to teach us. But it's, Valentine's Day is coming up. And some of you out there want to love up your loved one. And so in accordance with the title of the podcast, let's break it down. What does the word Tantra mean? Tan means to expand. Tra means a method, a way. So when you put it together, a Tantra is anything that we do, any practice that we do, any method that we use that allows us to take off the tiny, teeny jacket that we've been wearing since we were 8 years old or 4 years old or 16, that is small and it's tattered and it's ripped and we don't even like the jacket, but we're still wearing it. And that jacket is actually covering all of our perception. And a Tantra is a thing that you do. It could be energy work. It could be prayer. It could be therapy. It could be cathartic dance, exercise. It could be herbs. It could be, that's why, again, we have a whole year-long program because we need that long to even begin to talk about method. But it's anything that you do in any tradition that enables you to see truth and reality clearly. And that's a Tantra. A Tantra is a thing that allows me to expand my vision, to expand my awareness. Guys, this is what it really is. It's a way in which I can learn how to tolerate more chaos. Raise your hand out there. My hand is raised right now. If you spend a lot of your life feeling like you're managing chaos and trying to do certain things to control chaos. And by the way, that's natural. That's called the human condition. But ironically, the more we try to control the chaos and defend against it, the more rigid we become and the more brittle we become and the more hardened to life we become and the less capacious we are at actually being in chaos. Chaos is the underlying nature of reality. There are islands of structure. We call that Ayurveda. We call that the doshas, right? We call that the shrotamsi and all these structures, nadis, all these structures of our psychology and our body and our collective. We need to have those structures, and they do exist on one level, but life is chaos. And y'all, I know you're listening out there and you're going, Katie, oh my God, yes, life is chaos, sometimes more than others. And so if you're out there listening and it feels like your life is chaotic right now, just know this, you're closer to truth. It's those moments when we feel like we have our shit all locked down and tight, when we're just the furthest away from the true heart of the divine. So a Tantra is a means by which you can expand the seeing of the chaos and being able to find a place of rest where there is no ground to stand on. So what does that have to do with our sex life, our relationship life? We grow our capacity to be able to experience our own internal sensations. In sexuality, hopefully those are pleasurable. we grow our capacity to be able to withstand how good life can feel, because many of us been raised to only notice how bad it feels. And the kindergarten of sex life has absolutely nothing to do with what happens between people in an intimate space. Kindergarten, we have to go back to. We're trying to go to the University of Sex. But we haven't even started school yet. And so what is the kindergarten? And by the way, the cool news is it's completely G-rated. You can listen to this podcast. I don't recommend it, but you could listen to this with a child and no one would be traumatized, right? The kindergarten of our sex life is a personal practice of being able to feel the way that the rug feels under the soles of my bare feet, and to get acquainted with the raw sensation of being alive with my feet on the ground and not hurrying to get to the next big good thing. The kindergarten of sexuality is the realm of senses. And so in Ayurveda, we do a practice called this 5 senses purification. It's not you need to purify yourself because you're a dirty, dirty person. It's just that all of our senses have been under assault, especially with the technological era that we live in. So the kindergarten of our sex life is to make sweet, sweet, present love with the beloved of all of us, which is nature. That could be, just you sitting in your apartment, feeling the feel of the carpet, taking a moment as a meditation to taste the food that you're eating and the pleasure that is non-addictive of eating something that's good, that your body can feel is nourishing to you. This is the kindergarten of the greatest sex life. The ability to feel the fabrics, taste the food, to lay down on the ground and turn on your favorite song and hear. Or maybe walk outside and listen to the peacefulness of most of the time that is nature, the sounds of the creatures and the wind and the trees. To be able to look around without reading a book or watching TV or darting the eyes, looking for the next big great thing. The practice is that. And so you guys know this. We've done these types of meditation on the podcast. We certainly embody our meditations in Shakti school, but I just want to repeat this for us. Those of you who are in loving relationship, tell your beloved on Valentine's Day, my darling, come here. Please sit down with me. I want to look at you for just a second. I want to just look at you. And it will feel awful. Maybe, right? Oh my God. I'm imagining it. I'm already feeling awkward, right? That blushing quality is a sign that you're on the right path. That discomfort of being seen, and you don't have to do like the eye gazing thing. I mean, you can, but That's like university level shit. And it really annoys me actually when in workshops people just throw a bunch of strangers into a room and have them penetrative eye gaze. That is like a no-no for me. Why? Because you haven't earned the right. You're a stranger. This is a deep, deep, intimate practice on the energetic, subtle level, on par with penetration. So you don't even have to do that with your partner today. You just sit down, sit in a room. Hey, babe, like, let's just clear away all the distractions. Like, let me just look at you. Let me look at your skin. Let me look at your wrinkles. Let me look at your clothes you put on. Let me take in the things I like about you and I don't like about you, right? Like, you don't have to tell them, but you're observing and witnessing them, and just notice how that feels. And maybe you can do that with all of your senses. And I'm not here to be anybody's sex guru or teacher, that's for sure. I'm in kindergarten myself. But what I do know the basics. And the basics get skipped in some sort of flight into fantasy that actually causes us to miss out on what actually makes us feel quite vulnerable. It's also a good idea to clear the slate. It's impossible to have deep, intimate experiences that can, on their own, escalate to greater and greater experiences of connection with resentments in our hearts, right? And so a practice that I'm a big fan of for couples is, before you engage with one another on an intimate, personal level of your sexuality, just sit down with your clothes on and say, oh my darling, like, here's what's on my heart. I'm not shaming you. I'm not blaming you, but this is how I feel. And practice deep listening and non-shaming and non-blaming, just holding it. Yeah, I hear you. I get that is hard for you, or I get that that's annoying. I totally get that. Guys, the only thing anybody wants is just to be gotten. I want you to get me. When you don't take out the trash, it makes me feel like I have one more thing that I'm responsible for. And babe, I am at my limit. When you don't take the trash out, I feel like I can never be taken care of and I can never rest. And because I can't relax and rest, there's no way I can be in a sexual space with you. Yeah, babe, I hear you. I get that when the trash doesn't get taken out, you feel like that. I super get that. And you can't just fake it, right? You have to actually get them. It doesn't mean that you're agreeing with them, you know? Because the guy, let's say it's the guy, in that situation, he could be like, home girl, like, when you make it my job to take out the trash when I'm already like working 50 hours a week, like, I feel like I'm cooked too, you know? Okay, babe, I get that. I hear you. I see that. Let's come up with some sort of solution around this. And that's all we really want. Like, we just want to be gotten. So sit down, clear the slate, tell your beloved that you hear them and you see them and you get them. You get that that's real. And then I want to say this. There are a lot of things I could say, like, here's some cool things you can do together, but you have to join Shakti School. I'm not gonna go there on the podcast because A, again, I'll say it, is not the forum, but B, I also am not a fan of someone else's sex manuals. I don't care how old they are. Sex is one of the most important realms to, yes, have some basic education around energy. And again, I'm going to give you guys 2 or 3 books that are so great about how you can use your presence and your energy to touch your partner in a way that is healing and supportive for their nervous system, and especially for women's endocrine system and hormonal system, but also men. But for men, especially their emotional body, sex is so helpful for the male emotional body and so helpful for the women's physical body. Of course, all the bodies. So there are beautiful technologies. I'm going to share my secret book list with you guys that I love. But that being said, I'm not a big fan of ancient sex manuals because it misses the point, which is the Sanskrit word SAHAJA. SAHAJA means spontaneity, that which emerges out of a connection to prana, to energy, to presence. When I am with you, let's say, and I'm not talking about Katie Silcox, I'm talking about the I and the you universally. When the I and the you come together, and there is presence, and there is respect, and there is, oh my God, imagine this, love. Imagine that sex and love kind of maybe were good partners. When those elements come together, movements, experiences, tears, laughter, psychedelic journeys, super mundane journeys, healings, all these things emerge out of the third. What is the third? The third is there's me, there's you, and there's something else. And so that's called the relationship. And the relationship itself has a life force. And I don't know what it is, and you don't know what it is, but the relationship teaches us what to do, say, touch, intuit, all those things that no ancient or modern sex manual can ever do. And in fact, when we overlay some sort of sex practice or sex manual, whether it be old or new, when we overlay that into people, like when we give them these things and it gets downloaded into their psyche, in some ways it can do a disservice. In some ways, and sometimes it can do a disservice because now we're going into it expecting some sort of outcome, expecting some sort of goal. And that ruins the sahaja, the spontaneous, tender, holy ground that is secret. So it may seem a little ironic that I'm doing a plug for secret sex and sacred secrets in a public podcast. But it's really important. And I think in that, one of the side effects of considering our sexuality as secret and sacred is that it becomes sovereign. It becomes owned by you and only you. And that's empowering. That's really holy. So I hope with all my heart that there could have been some nugget in this that's going to change the way you meet your beloved tonight, that's going to cause something to catalyze a healing, a closeness, a new way of relating to one another. And I would never speak about this if that weren't my heart's intention. Because I really do believe that when men and women, and of course same-sex partnerships as well, but when we can love one another in this way, and when our sex lives can become a place of healing rather than harm, our whole society will change. So on that note, we have a new announcement that just came out hot off the press from Shakti School Press this morning, and that is we're doing a live event, and it's happening May 6th and May 7th. That's a Saturday and Sunday, May 6th and May 7th. It's going to be live in person in Charlottesville, Virginia, in our beautiful downtown space, and that will be very limited seating, around 40 people. It will be a very intimate gathering. We will sell out quickly. We always do. And what's so cool about this event, it's an event on embodying Ayurveda and the mystic Western psychological approach to reality, which is super fun. So a lot of breath work, a lot of intuitive movement. We're going to have such a great time getting in our bodies, and also mapping out some of the Western mystical traditions around the anatomy of your psyche, your mind, your soul. And why I'm bringing it up in this podcast is that we don't even have it on the website yet, so we may have it up by the time the podcast is out. But if you know you want to come, you can email my staff. info@theshaktischool.com will get you in. Like I said, those live space spots will go fast. Second piece around the live spots, and also, yes, this will be Zoom recorded. So that means anybody can come from around the planet and do this retreat May 6th and 7th with us. It will be Zoom recorded. And yes, those recordings will be available for you after the course is over, for probably around a year at least. So that's amazing. But here's the cool part I want to get to. This is a retreat on embodying these teachings for men and women. It's my goal to have as many men there as women. I don't know if I'll get that goal. Probably not. But I want to, because it's so important, you all, that we practice sacred ceremony together and apart and together. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, I really want to come, we will let you bring your partner. It can be a man, it can be a woman, we don't care. But it does have to be a human. You can bring your partner with you for half price. So it's just to really encourage, and that goes for live in person or Zoom. So May 6th and 7th, embodying Ayurveda plus the Western mystical psychology. May 6th and 7th, bring your partner for half price, Zoom or in person, and it's going to be so fun. I cannot wait, and it'll be great to actually be able to hang with some of you in real life. All right, beautiful. I hope you have a great, holy, happy Valentines, and I'll see you soon. A big special thanks to Kevin Carlisle of Goodbye Gemini, who wrote this beautiful podcast music, and to DJ Juan Pablo Jimenez in southern Spain for mixing it and making it magic.